I had a lot of questions and inquiries about my processor after I posted the video yesterday. Thought I'd do a quick walk around, maybe answer some questions and show some detail. There it is. A lot of questions were about the valves, hydraulic valves, and my hydraulic setup. There's the valve bank. This thing has two completely separate hydraulic systems, all running off of one tank, one reservoir. There's a 4-valve bank here that runs off of a small pump. It's about 4 to 5 gallons a minute that runs everything except for the splitter. This valve is for the bar feed. This one is for the bar clamp. This one is for log advance in the trough, and this one's not used at the moment. It's intended to be used for the log deck if I ever get around to putting one on it. These valves, this is an auto cycle valve for the splitter, and this one's not used yet either. I put that on in case I ever decided to put a adjustable wedge on it to raise it up and down. There's the controls for the engine, throttle, choke. This is a main battery. It cuts the battery off and on. This cuts the saw bar or the saw chain off and on, and this is for the oiler. I can turn these off and cycle the bar without the chain coming off and on. An ignition switch, of course. That's the oil tank for the bar oiler, and that is a 12-volt piston type automotive fuel pump for the bar oiler. It runs through, let's see if I can see it. There's a ball valve right here that I can control the flow, and here is a flow control valve that controls the speed on the bar. Going down on the hydraulic tank, suction and return lines for the small pump, the 5 gallon a minute pump. There's a thermostat inside the tank that controls the fan for the oil cooler. The main frame for the trough is made out of 4x2, about 3/16 wall square tubing or rectangular tubing. The chain is a 2060H conveyor chain. It's double pitch number 60 chain, and it's got lugs welded on it every once in a while to grab the log and pull it forward. The sides of the trough are made out of 1/4-inch plate. And there's the hydraulic cooler. I'm feeding it with an 1.25-inch line, coming out of it with 2 1-inch lines that feed two filters. And yes, that's a lawnmower blade. It's just something I had stuck in place to hold things together while I got it all welded up. I used 2 return filters because when that cylinder on the splitter is in retract, it's putting out around 80 gallons a minute. So I use 2 filters to split that up so that it keeps the back pressure down. And they're tied together back into another 1.25-inch line, or maybe 1.5 inches, I forget, back to the tank. There's the battery, 12-gallon fuel tank, electric fuel pump. Fuel tank's a long ways from the engine, so I use a electric fuel pump to get the fuel up to it to keep from working the little vacuum pump on the engine to death. That is a 35 horsepower Briggs Vanguard. It used to be 40 horsepower. They're rated at 35 now. Don't know what the difference is. Same engine. The engine's driving a triple B belt, which drives a line shaft. That everything runs off of the line shaft. You can see the small pump there that runs off of a single A belt. That pumps 4 to 5 gallons a minute, and it runs everything except the splitter. It runs the log feed, the bar feed, the chainsaw bar feed, and the clamp. that is the splitter pump there. It's a 1.59 cubic inch pump at 3,000 RPM and I think it's 3,600, rated for 3,600 PSI. I made the mount or adapter, whatever you want to call it, to mount the pump to the end of the shaft out of 8-inch square tube and 3/8 wall stuff. Milled both ends of the mount parallel to each other, then bored the holes in both ends at one time so they're in line, and made an alignment tool so when I bolted everything together, the pump is within 2,000 parallel and run out to the shaft. It's got that bar bolted to it to keep it from spinning, keep it steady. And on the other end of the shaft is an electric clutch, like you find on a lawnmower. That clutch runs a single B-belt that drives the drive shaft for the chain. And here's a limit switch, and when the bar starts down, the limit switch closes the relay and starts the chain turning, engages the clutch, starts the chain turning, and turns the oil pump on. It's the bar feed cylinder and the clamp cylinder, and the clamp was just some channel that I had laying around. Welded it up. Simple length indicator. It's an old CB antenna. That way it bounces around and doesn't get in the way. The wedge, excuse me, is something I'd come up with in a dream, I reckon. Works rather well though. It's made out of A36 plate. I need to make one out of AR400. Belt tensioner for that belt. The drive shaft for the saw bar, for the saw chain, runs through 2 pillow block bearings. It's a 1-inch shaft into the bar mount that I made, come up with. Maybe another dream, I reckon. It works rather well. I'm really pleased with the way that come out. The engine's running 3,600 RPM. I've got the belt reduction down to the line shaft turning at about 3,000 RPM, what the pump's rated at. I'm running about between 7,000 and 7,200 feet per minute on the chain. It's a 404 harvester chain, 32-inch bar, 32-inch Oregon harvester bar. I use this a jet fit bar, so you don't have to take everything apart to change the bars. It just slides out. Put a quick coupler on the oiler. So change the chain, you just pop the quick coupler loose, change the chain, and go back at it. It's a 14 pin B sprocket. That pretty much covers a lot, except for the splitter. It's a 5-inch splitter cylinder with a 4-inch rod. I'm running it at, I think I've got the relief set just over 3,000 PSI. And yeah, I've got weld beads run across it to help hold the block in place. There's a few things I'd change if I built another one. One would be try to get the splitter closer to where the block falls off. It has to fall a long ways, and a lot of times they fall crooked because of the distance it has to fall. But it works. It still works. I started out with an 18 horsepower, very well worn Onan engine right there, and a 28 gallon a minute 2-stage splitter pump, and it worked all right, but it just didn't do what I wanted it to do, so I had to upgrade it to the 35 Briggs and a 20 gallon a minute single stage pump. Biggest reason for the horsepower upgrade was for the saw bar. I wanted it to work a lot better than it did, and I did achieve that. It works really, really well. and upgrading to the single stage pump made a world of difference too. It really sped things up and made it a lot smoother. There's a lot less waiting. There is a master, excuse me, a master cutoff solenoid here for the battery. I can turn the power, it kills all the battery power, and this amount as close to the battery as I could get it. Done that for safety reasons, like a lot of heavy equipment. I think that pretty much covers everything. If there's any other questions, I'd be glad to answer. Glad to help anybody in the way I can. It's not really complicated. There's no secrets, or I tried to use all commercially available parts so that if anything goes down, it's easily and cheaply fixed. Well, I wouldn't say cheap, but parts are readily available. They push, the blocks fall down, run through the splitter. It's a one pass, there's no resplits. And up the conveyor, into the trailer. And yeah, there's my homemade splitter too. That's for this stuff that won't fit on the processor. I can handle, the processor will handle about 18 inches. I can squeeze a 20-inch in it, but it doesn't like it. It's a 32-inch bar. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet or not. But anyway, if there's any questions, anything I can help anybody with what I've done, I'd be glad to do it. Thanks for watching.